citizens, welcome to the Citizens Chat Show. My name is Masesa Demiano, your show host always. Today I'm joined by my panelists. We are going to have a very interesting discussion on the closure of NGOs and of course the shrinking civic space in Uganda. I need to start off right away with introducing my panelists. And my far right is Bwana Hudu Hussien, the RCC of Kampala. Bwana, you're welcome, sir. Hudu.
Thank you very much for having me, Damian. Good evening, viewers and listeners.
Thank you very much, Hudu, and thank you for honoring the invitation.
Honored, thank you.
Followed after Hudu is Henry Muguzi, is the Executive Director with Alliance for Campaign Finance Monitoring. Welcome.
Correct, thank you. Always a pleasure for me to be part of this group.
Thank you. This is, I think, your second or third time?
It's my second.
Thank you very much for coming. And Sarah Bireete, the Executive Director with the Center for Constitutional Governance, but also a regular panelist. Sarah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Demian, and good afternoon, viewers. I should find ways of missing the show also.
You've missed once.
I should miss more.
Thank you, Sarah. Then finally is Charles Mwanguhya. Charles is a journalist. Do you now take the title veteran? He's a journalist, is one of the most active, renowned active civil society players, but also he later joined politics. Yeah.
No, I didn't join politics. I ran for election.
You ran for election.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I ran for election and wasn't successful.
And then, of course, then you would term me as a politician.
No, that phase ended. I need to figure out what I need to be called, what I need to be. But Damian, it's a pleasure to be on this Civic Space
yes,
TV and on this show. Good afternoon, viewers, and good afternoon to my colleagues, the fellow panelists.
Thank you very much, Chais, and thank you for honoring the invitation.
Thank you.
Just right into the conversation, I just want to give it some brief. On a Friday, which just happened, Friday 20th August 2021, the NGO Bureau wrote to some 54 organizations in the country. In the document released, organizations had been categorized in three. The first category had 23 in number for operating with expired permits and ordered to halt the operations with immediate effect. The second category had 15 in number, indefinitely suspended for failing to file annual returns and audited books of accounts, and also they also had compliance issues. Then the third category had 16 in number, halted activities for operating without registering with the NGO Bureau. So there are about 54 organizations in there. So however, this is not the first time the government has ordered the closure of NGOs in Uganda. In November 2019, government announced that it was closing 12,000 NGOs it accused of refusing to be validated, and also the exercise which about, I think, 2,000 organizations participated. Of course, we know the government has so far closed down DGF, but also it has gone as far as arresting some NGO players. We know the executive director of Chapter 4, Nicholas Opio, was once arrested for allegations around financing subversive activities, money laundering. So we need to, these are some of the conversations that we need to have. It's upon this background that I think we need to discuss the closure and also the shrinking civic space in Uganda. Not as I always do, but for the first time I'll start from, I think, Henry. You'll give us this take. You need to give us a brief background about the NGOs and those CSOs in Uganda. Who are they, and who are these players in this sector?
Thank you very much, Damian. I think we can start off from the numbers. You will recall that until 2019, or thereabout, the NGO Bureau had a list of about 14,000 registered organizations. And these organizations were not filing returns. They actually did not know where they were. And therefore, they started a process of validating them. When they validated and we checked, only about 2,200 were able to be issued with the permits and confirmed as operational. It means that an odd 12,000 NGOs could not be accounted for to date. We don't know what happened to them, whether they failed to register, whether they don't exist, or whether they did not understand the call of the Bureau. So NGOs, how do we get to exist? These NGOs, first of all, are a part of the broader civil society. So, but the people who how they get to form is, first of all, the formers of them many times are members of the citizenry. So there is a problem and there is a need. And in countries such as ours, where the government is absent and present at the same time, absent when you need services, present if you hold a placard and say, we are dissatisfied with this, then they pull up. So because government is perennially absent to the citizen, from the citizen in terms of social services, a group of citizens rise up to either provide or do something about it. So they organize and they get to register and become NGOs. Of course, NGOs survive on the what's it called? The goodwill of well-wishers. They need money to conduct activities and respond to the needs that they have formed to respond to. And this comes again from well-wishers, and therefore they don't have a steady income. And so when we come to where we are, where the Bureau says you need to file returns, some of these NGOs can access funding today, and they can run 2-3 years, subsequent years without funding. Now, one of the requirements for you to submit annual returns is an audit report. For you to have an audit report, you must have had activities, but you should also have money to pay an auditor. So some of these organizations don't actually have the audit report. So if you don't have an audit report to append to that form of annual returns, then of course you can't do this. And it has happened not because you have defied, but it's because of conditions beyond your control. So I think these are some of the things that need to be understood. Now, when it comes to the permit, I know there are quite a number of organizations that were not fully informed of the new provisions of the NGO Act 2016, that you can't stop on just being company limited by guarantee. Quite a number of them. I remember one time I was having a discussion with Stephen, the head of the Bureau. And you know, you go around the country and these organizations are there. When you ask about their legal status, they pull out the registration from the Registration Services Bureau, URSB, the certificate of incorporation. And when you ask for the NGO certificate of registration, they say, we don't need that. And you discover that it is out of ignorance. And the Okero was like, okay, we need now to run a nationwide public awareness campaign. So it is in that midst that comes this halting of the 54 organizations, operations of those organizations, and the list could have been bigger, because I know of those organizations that don't have these and have not been making returns that are not on that list. So this is, we are where we are, and some of the reasons to explain why these organizations have been caught on the wrong side of the law is because of those factors I have explained that are beyond their control.
Just right there, and I think we shall dig deeper into that direction. Sarah, let me invite you. You've been holding a campaign on for the citizens, because out there they would want to know who are these NGOs, who are these CSOs. I need you to give the question and answer, the fact sheet that you are sharing around. Can you kindly tell us the organization, what are the NGOs and the CSOs in Uganda? A brief history about them or background about them, for a common Ugandan there to know.
The history of NGOs?
Just a brief about NGOs. Who are they, you know, and why are we having this discussion today?
No, NGOs are, I think Henry has explained that. NGOs are part of the broader civil society. These are volunteer citizens organizations, normally to help the poor and the vulnerable people, but also to provide spaces for citizens' participation in their governance, as well as bridge the gap on accountability and holding leaders to account. So under the broader civil society, you have trade unions, religious groups, you have media, academia, you have, you know, the members of the creative industry, and then NGOs, as well as other professional bodies. But so that's the civil society, and those are NGOs. I thought we are having a debate because of the actions of one of the government entities, and since we have government with us here, I think it would be good to hear from government. We have the whole government on the panel. Yes, and yes.
But from that angle, and since Sarah wants you to engage right there, and because you literally
But
our
the
president in the
president is the
city,
government.
I
Is
just
the
want to
head of
ask,
it.
how pivotal are NGOs and CSOs to the wider development perspective of the country? How pivotal are they?
They are very important. We have a book we call the Constitution of Uganda, which sets parameters under which the country should be governed. And under the national objectives and directive principles of state policy, Ugandans are called upon to participate in the development of the country. And that's where maybe we can categorize the civil society and especially NGOs to come together and contribute to the development of the country. But we are all aware that the same constitution guides every aspect of life in government. Whatever entity of government, whatever organization within the country, it has rules and regulations. We have NGOs mainly governed under the NGO Act of 2006, I think, of 2006, and the NGO regulations of 2017, I think, which are supposed to guide the operations of NGOs and the larger civil society community. And it is incumbent of all these entities to follow the rules. Every organization has rules of the game. And I'm sure that the Center for Constitutional Governance equally, CEDU, name them, they have rules and regulations which they set and believe that if they are followed, they will develop. And if they are to grow as an organization, they must ensure that they enforce adherence to these rules. That's why we have the NGO Act. And it's the same act that establishes the National Bureau of NGOs. And it mandates the NGO Bureau to regulate the operations of the non-government organizations, at least to follow the rules, among which is just briefly having a valid permit. You get what I mean? Submission of annual returns, etc. If you want to shift, we know that this is the Center for Constitutional Governance headquarters, and if you're to shift, at least before 30 days, you should notify the NGO board that, look, guys, this was our address, now we are here. There must be governance, and the government must govern. You cannot leave very important organizations of this nature to operate at large. And you're talking about organizations that preach the concept of rule of law. And I believe that the action of the NGO Bureau is within the legal parameters, these good people of ours who are preaching rule of law should really walk the talk.
Yeah, well,
So you should
right
not
there.
talk. You should not talk the talk if you're not willing to walk the talk.
Yeah, true. But right there, I want to understand, are the NGOs actually, do you consider them as your development partners?
But that's what I started with. Every Ugandan has an obligation, has a right to participate in the development of the country. But you must follow the rules. You get what I mean? If you don't follow the rules, then government should enforce the rules. And I want to thank the NGO Bureau for the patience. This action would have been taken maybe towards elections, and it would be misunderstood as a witch hunt. But now the elections are done. Guys, can we really do the right thing? I think we should give them that credit. And therefore, we are obligated as Ugandans to follow the rules. These people who want government to follow the rules should actually be the ones adhering to the rules. If you are operating without a valid permit, you don't have the mandate to really point fingers at anybody. And we don't need to politicize this. This was a legal action within the rules governing us as a people. So you cannot tell me that you are going to monitor elections, for example. If I may take SEDU as an example. The Elections Act provides that for an NGO to monitor elections, it must be accredited by the Electoral Commission. But you have a very major NGO in the name of SEDU abusing the rules. It went ahead and did whatever it did without applying to be considered.
They were not accredited.
They were not accredited. SEDU was not accredited to monitor the elections. It wasn't. I have a file here. I can
accredited to do civic education.
Yes, not to monitor. You get what I mean? I have a letter here, and all the issues that the NGO board raised against SEDU are here. And SEDU accepts
To Electoral Commission.
observing the general election 2021 without accreditation from the Electoral Commission. This is a letter from the National Bureau of NGO. You get what I mean? Now, this is a major organization that is preaching democracy, preaching rule of law, but it is really doing things upside down. It enjoys to point fingers at government, but what it thinks government is doing is what it's doing. So I think we are obligated as Ugandans to be responsible and be fair. If the rules of the games are these, please follow. The National Bureau of the National Bureau of NGOs is simply saying you are supposed to file annual returns. You have not done it. You are supposed to have a valid permit. It has expired. You have not done it. You are supposed to be accredited to do this. So you are really abusing the law. And as a government, we cannot allow that. So this is a legal action.
Okay, right there. We shall dig deep into that conversation. You've already set us, and the pace is on. But I just want to bring Charles. Yeah, Charles. NGOs in Uganda are strictly monitored and regulated by several bodies, among us which are the NGO Bureau. We have the district monitoring committees. We, of course, I think also RCC sub-county monitoring committees and. So in there, how easy or hard is it for the organizations really to comply with these regulations that the bureaus really?
Thank you. You see, the NGO Bureau is a creature of the NGO Act 2016 and the regulations 2017. I think it was assented to on 30th of January 2016. That's when the president assented to it. And in the short title to the NGO Act, it says, an act to repeal and replace the NGO Act Cap 113 to provide a conducive, this is what it intends to do, to provide a conducive and enabling environment for the NGO sector, non-government organization sector, to strengthen and promote the capacity of non-government organizations, to make provisions for the corporate status of the NGO Bureau, and provide for its capacity to register, regulate, coordinate, and monitor NGO activities. Now, if you read the Act in good detail, I was enjoying listening to my friend Hudu talking about following the law. Is the Bureau itself fully constituted to play this function? Is it operating within the law? Is a question. Number two, I think it's important that you create a distinction between the NGOs government acts on and those it doesn't act on. Because there are NGOs that occupy the space of service provision. Those hardly get any issues. There are those that poke the government, like Hudu has talked about, asking for accountability, asking for good governance, asking for rule of law. Those ones are always in the spotlight. I think those are important things to have in the background to understand the environment in which the NGO sector is, civil society is operating. We talked about the shrinking civil space, and when government chooses to take action. There is CEDU that's been mentioned. And for declaration of interest, I worked for CEDU for some time. We observed, when I was working at CEDU, we observed the elections of 2016. CEDU observed the elections of 2011. CEDU observed the enrollment of Ugandans for the national identity card. CEDU has observed multiple by-elections over the years. How come an organization that always got clearance from the Electoral Commission to do its work somehow forgot, ignored, didn't ask to be accredited to monitor the just concluded election? You have to ask questions around there. Number two, someone talked about what you're doing and what you're demanding for. What creates that? Nature hates a vacuum. If you create a vacuum on areas of governance, you create a vacuum on areas of accountability, you create a vacuum on areas of rule of law, then someone is going to emerge and try to create that, to occupy that space. Address those gaps, there will be no space for certain NGOs. So they will close on their own. They'll fail to find funding. But what are NGOs faced with in the country today? And I don't belong to an NGO anymore. I worked there for a short time and left, went back to the media. What are they faced with? They report to the NGO Bureau. There's a list of demands from there. They report they have compliance issues with the Financial Intelligence Authority. They have compliance issues with, so apart from the layers you listed, which are provided for actually, the NGO Bureau at the top, at the national level, the district monitoring committees at the district level, sub-county, as you go down. That is one arm that is provided for under the NGO Act. Outside of that, there are other areas that monitor, which raises the question. If an NGO is operating, or a civil society organization is operating under that kind of very deep and intense scrutiny from various arms of government, how does it reach to offend the parameters of its operation, and the government hasn't raised a finger, but only comes with a sledgehammer and strikes at a minute? Just one more thing. Operating within the law, I need to go back. I was checking the Act and how the Bureau can close an NGO or halt its activities. There's a provision. Grounds for the revocation of the permit, because it's issued by the board. That's under Section 33 of the Act. Before the Bureau revokes a permit under this section, it shall within 30 days from the date of notice, in writing, request the holder of the permit to show cause. That is revocation. They're saying they're operating without permits. Some have demonstrated they're actually operating within the law. They're saying they're operating without filing annual returns. Many have been actually putting on social media that they filed annual returns and they were received by the Bureau. I think there is a deeper discussion we need to have about this operational environment that Hudu is explaining. Inform in writing. The boss of the Bureau went to the media center, read out a list and sanctions, and went back home. Many of these groups are saying they didn't even receive notification They don't know the status. I mean how that has happened. So if you look at the operating environment, how are they supposed to navigate all the many rules that exist? If the rules are complex and unclear, then you have an issue. And I would really love to hear, I wish we had someone, one of the victims, a victim NGO or civil society actor on this panel to tell us, this is what we had. We received a call from the Bureau telling us, you've been compliant until recently. You have failed to comply for the last 2 years. Now we are taking action ABCD. You have an engagement.
Yeah, but Charles, many of these affected organizations are scared of speaking up in order not to escalate their situations.
There's nothing like escalating.
And then the other thing is, many of them actually ran from the operations of the NGO Act because government created a window for them to incorporate. So some of those that say we are incorporated, waive the certificate of incorporation, and say we're operating under a different set of rules that we are compliant to, because some of them have trading licenses, are filing their annual returns with the Uganda Registration Services Bureau, they are compliant on their tax obligations with the Uganda Revenue Authority. They possibly were looking at that civil society space and saying, this space is actually shrinking, but we need to function, we need to play a role. And for that reason, since government has given us a window, let's operate under the other window that exists. So are they in that sense operating illegally? Are they breaking the rules? Maybe yes, maybe not. We need interpretation of some of those issues.
Okay, interesting. Sarah, you want to say something?
I want to come in to give a rejoinder to what Charles has said, so that maybe Mr. Hudu can then respond once and maybe share some insights, because we have to also be mindful that he's not from the Bureau, although they play a key role with NGOs at the district level.
And the enforcers.
Yes, so when you go under the powers of the Bureau, and this is under section 7 of the NGO Act 2016. You know, I was trying to look for a definition of revoking and halting yesterday. To halt means to bring to an abrupt stop. To revoke means to cancel a permit. And that exception of revoking, the ground is given under Article 33. The only ground under which a bureau can revoke a permit is when an organization is operating outside its own constitution and set objectives. And Section 33 is very clear. So that's the situation where a bureau can cancel your permit after a 30 days written notice. So when the bureau writes halting, and in the 3 categories, under category A, organizations without permit, the bureau halts. That is under A, halted the operations of the foreign NGOs operating with expired permits. Under category C, it halted the operations of the organizations without permits.
Where is that document coming from?
This is the
NGO Bureau.
NGO Bureau notes
Bureau
under the
categories.
categories.
They spelled out
The
categories,
statement
3
they
categories.
released. Category A and C is halting. But the functions of the Bureau does not mention halting. You know, an abrupt end. Say, stop operations. There is nowhere where the Bureau has such powers. So when you get these actions now, halt. Even there was a rumor that they wanted to arrest if these offices are open. The law does not provide for such a thing. When you go under Section 32 of the Act, it provides that an organization whose permit expires but continue to operate without renewal of its permit will be fined 10 currency points in case of community-based organization and 100 currency points for an organization for every month of operation in default of renewal of a permit. This is the provision of the law.
Well
So where do you get powers to determine otherwise?
the law is clear.
When the law is very clear, and maybe Mr. Hudu Hussien should help them since he's an accomplished lawyer. Let the Bureau regulate within the confines of the law, not outside the law.
Actually, for me, if the Bureau could provide that conducive and enabling environment, facilitate, not impede the operations. Muguzi talked about what happened before, the cleaning up process of the civil society space. Very well.
Cleaning up?
Yes, cleaning up.
The validation.
The validation,
validation exercise.
Yeah, the validation process. That was done, and compliance begins. Once it begins, you facilitate, because you have validated. There are not many organizations that are new among these. You facilitate, you enable them to function. You don't impede their function.
Yes, but in addition to that, why didn't the Bureau take action after the validation? You have validated? Because I'm sure if an organization like CEDU, they were saying for annual returns for 2017, 18, 19, and 24 years. Chapter 4 since 2016. But you have validated and cleared these organizations because they were on the validated lists. So what did the Bureau validate? And why didn't they take action immediately after validation? You write to these organizations and say, I have not received the following from you. Can you please provide it? Why doesn't the process start from there?
To be reminded.
Yes, after validation has ended, you've published the validated NGOs. You deal with those who are not validated. What are you waiting for?
But
I think right there, Andrew, I want to just ask a question. If we know that there are these regulations that are in place for NGOs to work within, if you have to work with a permit, a fully valid permit, you have to file your returns. What then? Why do NGOs really take long to really comply? But also importantly, is the Bureau, at what stage? Do they have to send in a notice for you to comply, or they just have to come like they did and say, okay, you're closed? Is there a period, a window within which you have to comply?
Maybe just shortly before Henry comes in, among the objects of the bill and the objectives of the bill, it is for the Bureau to build the capacities of NGOs. So when you finish validation, let me use an example of Center for Constitutional Governance. We've done the first validation. The second validation is due. You have not seen us. You know our address. Why don't you interface with us? If it's a capacity issue, the law says capacity building for NGOs. If it is a funding issue and indeed we don't have audits or whatever it is, then you advise us on what to do. That is the capacity that the law talks about. Why does the Bureau interface with NGOs only when they are making funny pronouncements in the media?
You're right. And to answer what you are saying, the Bureau has to first of all take off time to understand the characteristics of these organizations they are supposed to regulate. Because for me, the way they behave does point to the fact that there are things they don't understand. The assumption is that these organizations called NGOs are well-oiled machines that operate normally like government does. There are situations in an NGO where you can spend 2 years
without
more,
funding.
Without funding.
Yeah.
During that time, you don't actually have staff. Okay? It's the head of the organization who is surviving on their passion, and some of them burn out and the organizations close. And therefore, there is no organization whatsoever that wouldn't want to comply with the law. It is clear in the kind of context we operate in. Okay, you're being policed left, right, and center. That you are better off being on the right side of some of these draconian laws than violating them. And therefore, so these NGOs tried their level best. Now, for those that did not, I know some that were not able to renew their permits when the validation exercise was still ongoing. The reason was simple. Number one, they had spent more than 2-3 years without funding. And you see, for you to validate, there were requirements you had to fulfill. So they couldn't. But also the bill assumes that they sit where they sit on top of the tree in wherever they sit, and they think whatever information they pass out reaches everybody. There are civil society actors there that that their communication doesn't reach. So some of them out of ignorance, of course ignorance is no defense, we know, but some of them out of ignorance have not complied out of what? Of ignorance. If you speak to Okello, he will tell you that I think there is a need for the Bureau to reach out and sensitize these organizations. Because before you pull out the stick, can you make sure that the law is well understood? Because without these organizations, I don't think the Bureau would also stand. In fact, Okello will not have a job. You see? Because what do you regulate when the whole sector is gone? You see? So I think these organizations try their level best to comply. There is no organization that is adamant to refusing to comply. That issue of transiting from the certificate issued by the Uganda Registration Services Bureau to obtaining the certificate of registration.
Henry, right there, don't you think that is there a possibility, or don't you think that NGOs should then possibly write to the NGO Bureau and tell them if there's no funding, and to tell them at this point we don't have funding, we need an exemption of the sort? Is there a possibility in that kind
That's what you get when you give them the 30 days notice. And then they let you know, because there's a reason. But also I should say this, you see, most of us, for example, my organization, we think we are not actually an NGO. We are a civil society organization. But they have boxed us into that box. You must be an NGO. Maybe this is why some organizations do not feel attracted to work to the NGO Bureau and get to be, you know, defined as such.
Charles, yes, you want to use
I think it's a question of asking the NGO Bureau, is it actually policing people under its mandate, organizations under its mandate? Because there are those requirements to be identified as an NGO. So is said to an NGO is a question. Does the Bureau know? Does it act and behave as an NGO? So if it transitioned and became an NGO, because when I was working with it, it was a program. Under
They later registered.
They later registered.
In 2019?
Yes, I know they later registered long after I had left. They later registered and tried to formalize. You can't say that an entity trying to formalize itself as recently as 2019, as recently as that, is already in violation and deserving of the sanctions that Sarah just read out. Because the nature of sanction should match the non-compliance if the spirit is to facilitate the growth of. You don't seem to see that within the actions of the NGO Bureau. We need to hear a little bit more from the Bureau. We need to hear a little bit more about the space within which it is operating. I think I've had issues I need to be guided about whether it has a functional board. Which
the Bureau?
Board, yes.
Doesn't, as we
which
speak.
board is supposed to
Take these actions.
make these decisions that the Secretariat is doing. We need to find out.
The board is not in place.
Yes, we need to find out. Does the Bureau have the requisite committees that it's required to have to do certain things? And then so that we locate, if it's about compliance with the law, working within the law, then we need to be able to locate that
Even the Bureau is not above the law.
Every actor within that
Yes,
space
everybody
is
should
compliant
work
with
within the law.
The NGO and the Constitution of the Republic.
The problem
Yeah, true. Then, Hudu, I want to bring you in.
Yes.
You when you started the conversation, you placed these NGOs and CSOs as very serious organizations that really required the monitoring. So I want to ask, is the Bureau used as a political tool to actually curtail the operations of these NGOs, CSOs, or it is indeed their right to do what they are doing?
Of course, I would have been surprised to end this show without you raising such a question.
Now I've raised it.
There is a tendency of partners in development to politicize whatever government comes up with. We are talking about a regulator. And you see, when we are reading these laws, the NGO Act. And when my sister Sarah here, my very good friend, quotes section 33, he should not quote it in isolation. We are
Together
supposed
with
to read.
31 and 32.
Yes, we should read the act as a whole, not just an individual section. Section 31 is very clear. NGOs are prohibited from operating. Prohibited. The word is prohibited.
Yes,
You get what I mean? Prohibited to operate
without a permit.
without a valid permit. That is very clear.
Section 32.
Now, we are talking about, me when I read the letter of the NGO board, it's talking about suspension.
Halting
Now
and
being
indefinite
suspended.
suspension.
Maybe when you put indefinite,
Yes, that's what he put.
but at the end of the day,
That's what he put.
the end of the day, these are our laws. Damian, these are our laws. There is a school of thought that good lawyers like Sarah Bireete and Charles Mwanguhya know, the positivists. The law as it is, not as it ought to be. What does the law provide? Yes. The law is very clear, it prohibits. It is escapism. If we are here to, and I understand where Sarah and my friends are coming from. They are in the same boat. So they have to sound, to be sympathetic and plead and talk on behalf of their colleagues. You get it? It's understandable.
No, Hudu.
But the law...
Just a minute,
the
if
law
you may
remains
allow
the
me.
law.
If
The
you
law-
may allow me.
No. Please protect me.
Okay.
My sister. The issue here is there are violations. We are dealing with the compliance issues. Compliance. And I don't think we may go that side of establishing whether or not the NGO board is fully constituted. But that is still escapism. If you have a secretary of the board, if you have staff, they are supposed to ensure that they enforce the rules. It is not enough for you to say, but you see, we have done this is wrong, but the problem is you are not well constituted.
Do you have a line minister?
That is
Sebo.
escapism.
Mr. Hudu, do you have a line minister?
The Ministry of the Presidency.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it vacant?
Of course it is, but not all staff have been filled.
But is the
in
minister
the
and the
local
PS
government.
there?
We have so many local governments in the country where you find that they are supposed, for example, in Kampala here, we are supposed to have 100, more than 200 parish chiefs, but we have less. But we are operating, and there is nobody, no one is going to come up and say, you know you don't have enough parish chiefs. No. As long as there is a parish chief who can take up the role of parish A, B, C, and is running all of them, he's supposed to enforce the rules. So therefore,
Damian, if you
we
may
have to
allow
put
me.
politics
No,
aside.
if you may allow me briefly.
Hudu, let me get
Just
yeah,
information.
questions and
Just
interjections.
information.
Yes.
Hudu, I think we should be fair to the listeners. This debate is not just for us as panelists. Because part of the work that we do is also to educate people. So it is not for the benefit of just us. We are 3 lawyers on the panel. You indeed rightly said that people should read the act in full. Section 31 prohibits any entity to operate without a valid permit. Section 32 provides the punishment of doing so in Section 31. Section 33 provides grounds under which you cancel a permit. So why are you just comfortable with 31? No, just read the law.
Yes, that is
just read the law.
And by the way,
you are comfortable quoting Section 31, leaving the actions that should be taken.
Let me also bring in Charles. Yes.
Because every fault has an action.
It's interesting. I am not an NGO worker.
No.
I'm not in government.
Yes. You are neutral.
So I occupy a neutral space. But I'm a citizen, and that is above everything else.
Exactly.
When the RCC for Kampala, speaking for government, equates the role and responsibility of a board, of an important government body,
To a parish chief.
to a parish chief,
No, that was an example.
then you have a crisis.
That was just an example. And
The parish chief is an
Charles,
executioner
Charles.
at that level. Okay? No, seriously. He's an executioner at that level.
Lower.
And his responsibility can be handled by the parish chief of the neighboring parish.
Mm.
But the NGO board, I mean the board of the NGO bureau,
Controls
supervises
and
controls the
supervises
actions of the employees of the board.
under
If you
section
leave-
6,
Yes.
subsection
If you
4.
leave employees of the board, employees of the bureau,
On
do
their
what they
own,
want on
with
their
no
own, on
reporting.
the frolic of their own.
Yes.
You
They
must-
have no one to report to.
They have no one
I've
to
not
report to.
addressed my mind to that issue,
they don't
but I'm
have-
going to really, because you may get surprised.
No,
There is
the
enough
Act
stuff.
provides for a tribunal.
Yes.
The
The,
Act provides
Can
for
you
a tribunal.
confirm, Charles, if I may?
let me
Can you
read
confirm?
for you. Let me read for
Okay,
you the
let
specific
Sarah read,
sections.
then we
Kindly,
get
kindly.
to Sarah.
Can
yes.
you confirm to us that the board is not fully constituted?
It is not there. It expired on 1st September last year. For 1 year, we have no board. On that board, we are supposed to have 2 representatives as NGOs. So let me read for you briefly
That
the
is
laws.
besides the point.
Okay, but let me read briefly. Let me read.
You know it is in the
Okay, let's
Let me
Sarah
read
inform us,
briefly.
then
Quickly,
we-
let me
we
read
get,
briefly.
the guidance, yes.
Section 6, subsection 4 provides that the executive director of the bureau shall be under the control and supervision of the board of directors. Section 9 stipulates the composition of the board, and membership includes the chairperson, vice chairperson, 2 representatives of NGOs, and 3 other persons. This board does not exist. The last board expired on 1st September 2020.
Refer to section 11 as well. Spells out the functions of the board.
Yes,
Overseeing the implementation of the bureau's policies
and programs.
reviewing and approving strategic plans.
And
Now,
actions.
who is taking care of this?
Who is supervising the bureau?
Programs.
You see,
Eh?
it is very unfortunate that we are trying to escape the
Mm.
facting issue.
Yes.
And you see, as I said, Sarah,
What are we
I have
escaping?
not yet addressed my mind to, this is escapism. We have...
That who do you are in? No. Let me
give-
say,
let me
as
give you a case scenario. Let
RCC,
me give you a case
you are in
scenario.
office. You have no permanent secretary in the office of the presidency. You have no minister, and you have nobody to report to or consult. Is that escapism?
Can I give you an example? The Ministry for Kampala, the Ministry of the Presidency, and the other 2 ministries use 1 permanent secretary.
Secretary of the president.
No? Haji Kakande, the Secretary Office of the President,
Yes.
is managing 3 ministries.
Yes,
You
that's
get it?
how they are constituted. Yes.
No. We have some permanent secretaries who are handling particular ministries.
I've
I
never-
was just citing an example to really remove the
So who
assertion
is acting at the
that,
bureau? Who is acting at the
No,
bureau?
but you see,
Who is doing the
Sarah,
functions of the board?
Sarah. My good friend Sarah.
Go on, Hudu.
My good friend Sarah. We have what we call facts in issue. What is the issue? Violation, non-compliance. If there is a murder case today, God forbid, he's murdered. The issue is there is murder. You are not going to say, no, you see, even if there is murder, the person has gone the other side. No, a person has died. And someone must answer. That's simply what the NGO board is saying. That you have violated the rules. You are talking of rule of law. You are only stopping at talking and you are not walking. And for us as regulators, we are coming in to regulate. There is no way government can leave such a very important sector
Yes. Unregulated.
unregulated. No.
If it's
We
important,
have-
why doesn't it constitute the bureau?
That will be handled because I don't think government. Of course, we know how important the NGOs are. They are playing very good roles. There are those who are really doing very funny things. He has cited examples of those who have operated without money for more than 3 years. There are those who are desperate because they have not operated without money for 3 years, and they can receive money from even a terrorist. You get it? Because they are desperate. They want to operate. And we are saying, what is your source of funding? That question is asked by America, by UK, countries all over the world. They ask those questions. Who is funding you? What are your annual returns? And this is simply what we are saying, that we cannot leave such important developers partners to whom it may concern. And the timing, to me, I'm very comfortable with this timing, because at least we are done with elections. Nobody will say we are politicking. And I want to encourage ourselves not to politic here and face the facts as they appear.
Because the allegations that now the NGOs that are targeted are
Yes.
NGOs that have been so much critical on government,
But we
but
should
also
have done
highlighting
that.
issues of governance,
Are you aware that
accountability
the
from
NGO
government?
board would have done that even before 2021 elections?
But we saw
But we
Nicolas,
had
we
to
saw
let
Nicolas
that go.
Opio's chapter, of course, Nicolas
That
Opio
was
himself.
that,
We saw DGF being closed or up to now, suspended up to now. New You, that
Yeah.
was just a consortium
suspended.
that
Were they
had
suspended over nothing?
Who? The DGF?
Action Aid, DGF.
No, this is towards elections. Just
You
these
get
are
it.
concluded elections.
Yes,
We
but
had
you
DGF
see,
off. We
we-
had chapter
If we
4's
have
Nicolas
2,000
Opio.
NGOs,
Yes.
for example, there is no way you're going to tell me that all of them are perfect. Not all of them are perfect. There are those who are risking this country. But we have not gone there. We are on compliance. And as responsible citizens, as people who are preaching democracy, you must really have this implemented. Simple. So me as the RSS, I was not in office, but I'm told last week, my secretary informed me that SEDU came for recommendation. Did they wait for this to happen? My office is ever open. Me, since 18th March 2020, I've never had a day of resting.
Have you given them?
24/7. How would I give them? Because they are not fulfilled some requirements. My we have requirements that are ticked. Before I recommend, you must meet them.
What are those requirements for the benefit of listeners?
That one, I'll leave it. It's a long story.
Yeah, okay.
But thereafter,
But I thought it's one of
I
your
want-
responsibilities as RCC
I
to facilitate.
we have the NGO monitoring committee in every district. And in Kampala, I'm a member of that committee. We have the technical committee. We have the sub-county committees. The NGOs are supposed to, if they are partners in development, they're supposed to work closely with the sub-county. Not that the sub-county wants to monitor you. How do we cooperate to develop the sub-county? If your intention is to develop, if your intention is to promote democracy, how do we cooperate at district level? Have you signed an MOU with the district you're operating? SEDO has never done that. And the Ugandans are not fools. They see what is happening. There is an NGO that was also suspended called the Dawa something. It's a Dawa. Is it a Dawa? And we have not seen them before the cameras. We have seen, let me give you, this is the SEDO. The second one here is SEDO has too much. The second one here is Africa Institute for Energy Governance. It has not gone to the cameras to complain because they know their mistake. They are going to implement. Another one is Chapter 4 Uganda. They are all here. And we are simply saying, please, can you walk the talk? Can you do what you are preaching? It's one thing to point fingers at the government, and it's another thing for you to continue doing something else. We don't want you to continue misguiding the country. You appear to be prophets of democracy, but down here you are receiving funny things, and you're doing funny things. Yes, you're employing Ugandans. That's why we shall continue recommending you. But what are you doing? They concoct figures, they forge papers. I've ever worked in a certain NGO, I will not mention the name. But we know how some of these NGOs operate. They get trillions and trillions of monies, but they don't disclose this money. They go and sit somewhere, they...
That kind of money.
Of course, that is nothing. Look at the substance here. You get what I mean? So, government must govern. And this is what the NGO board is doing. And me as the RCC of Kampala, I am going to look through the NGOs that are within my area of jurisdiction, and I'm really going to monitor them closely. I'm very lucky that the Center for Constitutional Governance is really doing fairly well. They are, of course, with all due respect to a few mistakes here and there, but they are doing a good job.
Which mistakes?
They are doing a good job. You get it? But we shall not allow NGOs that are going to be used to injure the security of this country?
I think it's a discussion we are going to have right after the short break. Yeah, we want to dig deeper into that area which is, of course, brings out the issue of the narrowing civic space. Yeah. Thank you, dear viewers. Let's have a short break and get back into the second segment of our discussion, where we'll tackle deeply the narrowing civic space in Uganda. Stay tuned.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Thank you very much, dear citizens, for keeping it there. Thank you very much for getting back into this short break. Right on our panel, of course, we have Hudu Hussien, our RCC of Kampala. We have Henry Muguzi, the Executive Director of ACFIM, Sarah Bireete, the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance, and Charles Mwanguhya, a citizen, a journalist, and I would want to retire.
Journalist and
a lawyer and journalist, yes. Yes, thank you very much. And this discussion, of course, like so has always been, kindly follow us on YouTube. We are live there. Subscribe to the channel. Also, we are streaming live on Facebook live. Also on Twitter, chat show UG, the hashtag there. Kindly be part of the conversation and share with us your comments and your thoughts. Into the discussion, and Henry, again, I want to start with you. Hudu, at the point of a closure, he brought out the issue of NGOs having subversive activities, and it's the reason why some of these regulations must be enforced. You're in the sector where you monitor finances flowing here and there. And towards these elections, just after the conclusion of these elections, and at the peak of the arrest of Bobi Wine when the shootings happened, the president said that these occurrences are really funded by civil society and some actors in the NGO sector. And some of the young people do this not willingly, but because they want the money. How true are these statements really, as that adult in the sector that you operate?
Thank you very much. Of course, as a sector, we have received quite a sizable chunk of bashing from the powers that be. And most of this bashing is informed by misinformation or at best half-baked research. For most of us that engage on issues of democracy, human rights and accountability, which do seem to put the powers that be in a position of discomfort. We've been accused of different things. Now, you have heard, I think if I could focus on the lead to elections, there were accusations that the funding to the National Unity Platform and other opposition groups was being channeled through civil society organizations. Then they said we are funding terror. You would recall that the reason given for the freezing of the bank accounts of the organization that were at the receiving end of that bashing were that they were financing terror. But we think that, of course, government having access to all sorts of intelligence, they can buy any intelligence. We do know that they know what is going on. I'm not convinced that they don't know that that most of these organizations are organizations that mean well, but I also don't want to discount the fact that there could be a few errant ones. But when we get to the receiving end of that bashing, that tarnishing, we have our image tarnished. Quite a number of citizens begin to look at us not as well-intended citizens. They stop looking, they start imagining that we are up to no good. And therefore, this has not been a very good for the sector. It gets increasingly difficult now to convince the citizenry that we actually have bona fide reasons why we do what we do. And therefore, it's an agenda that I think government has mastered, because they know for as long as they help delegitimize the good cause of the men and women that work in the NGO sector, then they are achieving their desired end.
Maybe to get to Hudu a little. Hudu, there's been, of course, allegations and that NGOs are involved in the issues of money laundering, of course, then sponsoring subversive activities. But we've not seen any CSO leader being brought to book, and of course also aligned into court for these allegations. How true are these allegations?
Well, these are allegations that are still under investigation. The challenge we have, we face as a government, is that when you take action, there is some public outcry over the step you've taken. And if you completely don't take an action, they will ask you questions like, they have not been brought to book. But money laundering is a serious crime that a country, just mere suspicion, and a government must take steps to avert any would-be actions that can injure the state. And this is done for the benefit of all Ugandans. So we have had, and these are all under investigation. And I didn't want to take that line. But the issue of some political activities in the just concluded elections, we have received reports to the effect that people have been given money to behave in a certain manner. We have seen innocent youth who are jobless, looking forward to some source of livelihood, but they are given money to go and demonstrate, not money to start up a business. I don't know how many NGOs are being given money to develop Ugandans, real economic development. How many? If they are there, they are very few. Economic development. When I was a youth leader, when I was Secretary General of the Youth League, and I don't want to be misunderstood here, I received some good support from a certain international NGO. Support for over 4 years. Workshops. Every workshop I would spend more than 50 million. You get it? On democracy, multi-party democracy and the political sensitization. But if you write a concept to start up a business, to help this young man to start up a business, you will not get that support. So that is the concern. Because if some of these funders are interested in the people, they would help to uplift the people, help government to fight poverty, to eradicate poverty.
But also the funders have their areas of interest.
You are going to spend over 50 million in a hotel room, taking some tea and someone talking constitutionalism, which is very good, very important, by the way. But can we balance? Can you give some money to empower the young people? We have seen young people who have abused drugs, but we have seen politicians who are reaching out to these people, the delinquent youth. You get it? To give them 20,000 or 50,000 to go and burn a petrol station. But they will not give them money to start up a business.
Maybe
and for us, we are saying that is wrong.
Yes.
And while you may think government is wrong to take that road, you should ask your question yourself. What is the interest of this international funder? Is he interested in developing Uganda, or he has a hidden motive? So when you can close one eye and you allow some to operate, but again they don't comply. They start hiding how much they are receiving. They don't give annual returns. As a government, what do you do? We must follow the rules.
Right there, I just want to ask Sarah. Sarah, what are the funding dynamics? Are these NGOs, the funders, literally all there to fund only governance-related issues and what?
Demian, let's first look at our chapter 4 of the Constitution, what we call fundamental rights and freedoms, but also known as the International Bill of Rights. They are political rights, civil and political rights, but also economic and cultural rights, and environmental rights. Economic, culture, and environmental rights. Article 40 is about economic rights in our Constitution. Article 38 is about civic participation. Article 29 is about freedom of association. Article 21 is a right to privacy. Article 23. All these are fundamental rights and freedoms. Civil, political, economic, culture, and environment. We have partners in Uganda here who support economic empowerment, including the JICA, the Japanese International Cooperation Alliance, SIDA, the Swedish Development Alliance. USAID has projects that cover all these rights: civil, political, economic, health, environment, climate change.
But where is their focus?
No, let me finish.
Where is their focus?
USAID, which is a partner of government of Uganda, covers all this range of rights. And they support both government and non-government. So if you have, let me take an example of the struggle in the democratic governance facility. As the name suggests, it was clear, it was about deepening democracy. So if my focus is deepening democracy, if SIDA, its focus is economic development, JICA even buys agricultural equipment and empowers young farmers. It is here, it is a pattern of this government. Netherlands Embassy works a lot in economic empowerment and climate change.
Of which nature? Netherlands Embassy?
Yes.
Which economic empowerment of which nature? Which projects?
They support youth, they support farmers, they support women groups. European Union supports both economic and political. Here is a pattern of government of Uganda. So I think for my brother who do say that people don't fund it, even in NGOs, we have those that do economic empowerment. We have those that do health rights. We have those that do farmers. You see, people work according to their passion. Who do before you became RCC, which is still political? You were with us as a political activist and actor. I did not see you saying, me, I am carrying my hoe.
I was a youth leader.
Yes, youth leader
national youth
in
leader.
University, in a political party.
In university, I was a guild president.
Exactly, that is a youth leader in a university. Isn't it?
But
Yes.
my concern...
No, that's big
that
clear.
is true.
So
That
why
is
didn't
true.
you lead and mobilize farmers from that stage? Why did you go into leadership? Everybody has a passion and interest.
I'm talking out of experience. I have written concepts, proposals, as a youth leader then, soliciting for support.
To who? Did you know
But
their objectives?
I don't want to mention the names of those NGOs, those international NGOs.
They have
But their
objectives
focus,
they
their
fund.
focus, of course, they have specific objectives.
They fund.
But why is it that they have the objectives are dominated with the politics alone?
That is their interest.
But can you separate politics from economics?
You cannot.
That is their interest.
But if the level of aggressiveness you're going to inculcate in a certain young people is equal to the economic empowerment, that youth who are economically empowered, very few of them are in politics.
Did
Very
you
few.
go to USAID?
You
Did
get
you
it.
go to SIDA? Did you go to JICA?
I'm looking at a percentage. You said will give you 80% or 70%. And really, I've not yet addressed my mind very well on that, and I don't want to be quoted so much in that area. But the fact remains, what Uganda needs most now is poverty eradication programs.
That government work on
How
it.
many international NGOs are focusing on that? They are there, but the budget is very little allocated for that specific sector. The focus, human rights, democracy, and of course as a lawyer, really, yes, that is okay. But how many lawyers are we having who are also struggling economically? Because what does the law help me when I don't have the money? The issue is the money. So, no. I don't want us to lose that point because of all these organizations. Show me which of these organizations is focusing on economic empowerment.
But you see,
How much they are getting? They are getting a lot of money.
but you see, economic empowerment is
These
not
are
about giving a
volunteer
Why
tandikwa.
can't they volunteer
or
in
seed
economic
capital.
empowerment? Why should they volunteer in politics and democracy alone?
Have you seen the people there? I saw
But-
the
but-
range. We have, by now we have more than 100 organizations in this country working on food security and food rights.
But they get little
We have
funding.
more than 200 organizations working on environment and climate change.
Those are interests of some powers that be. They have the objective that, yes,
Hudu.
climate change is a very important
Yes.
aspect. But they are funders of climate change. I don't want to go into the politics of economic hitmen. I don't.
What are
I
you
don't want to go into
suggesting?
the politics of, you know, someone sits here and looks at Uganda and says, how do we benefit from Uganda? You fund this. But Ugandans are suffering. They want to get out of poverty. And you're giving little, you're doing little.
Why
as
is
far
the
as poverty
government?
education is
Why
concerned.
is the
No,
government?
let's get to
Government
Charles. Let's get to
So
Charles.
where
Government
they-
is playing its
And
part, Sarah.
Charles, we are digging deep into this, yeah? Of course, like you hear Hudu saying, that the civil society has taken the position of almost an opposition kind of group, criticizing government in and out, yeah? And we are trying to understand, is it a case of misunderstanding or this is a really genuine claim?
And I think it's a case of selective amnesia, especially from when you hear the arguments that my friend Hudu makes, you realize that this country has been evolving. The kind of prominent NGO actors when we are coming out of the war in 1986 through the early 90s are not the kind of active NGO actors you have today, because there is an evolution. If you go to northern Uganda, eastern Uganda, the prominent actors then were addressing issues of a people coming out of a particular situation. So I think it's incumbent upon government to celebrate and say, we have made these strides, that where we have arrived, it's inevitable that we deal with civic space. It's inevitable. When HIV was at 30%, almost every NGO they talked about was addressing HIV AIDS-related issues. When we're coming out of the war in 1986, almost everybody was talking about rehabilitation, resettlement, things like that. When government did the initial retrenchment of the military, reorganization of the military, NGOs came up to help those people get settled, supplement government efforts.
Even during COVID.
During
all
COVID,
governance funding
shifted.
organizations
Now,
shifted. On records they issued were for COVID.
exactly. Now,
Or
when Hudu complains that 50 million gets spent in a hotel, and he has grown from a school youth leader to a university youth leader to a party youth leader, now to a very important person, resident city commissioner for Kampala city, Uganda's premier city, the biggest. He is certainly benefiting from that mentorship, that training that he got. Why in that position now he would want to deny other young people to be mentored and prepared to lead where he's leading is, I think, is unfair. No, hold it. Hold it, I was listening. I think that's completely unfair. Number two, I think you have the resources, sir. I think government has the resources. Go back and check how much funding, external funding, is going into other areas you're talking about. How much money from the United States is going to fund health, is going to fund agriculture, is going to fund tourism, is going to fund so many other things. Then go to European Union, go everywhere. Fund the military, fund training, fund this, fund that, fund that. Put that money together. Create a percentage and ask, are these NGOs that are making noise getting the most money? Or actually they're getting a fraction of that money? If you come to those things, then you appreciate where we are. But I want to agree with Hudu on certain issues, especially from the first segment. It is important that everybody is in compliance. It's important that everybody is observing the laws of this country. And none of us, no one, wants a situation where terrorism is thriving in this country, or subversion. because it disorganizes everybody. But government should not, at any one time, hide behind subversion to curtail spaces, because I think that's it's the difficult thing that we always try to navigate. When people advance economically, socially, they are going to ask for spaces in the political sphere. They are going to ask for more freedoms. So the demand for more freedoms is insatiable, just like the demand for better development. And as a country, as a democratic country that is making progress, I think it's incumbent upon us, and especially the leaders, that we continue that advancement instead of trying to curtail it. It's just as simple as that, I think.
Okay, interesting. Who do you want to interject? Yes.
Charles has really made a very strong submission, but we have seen definitely the international NGOs coming in to help Ugandans, but most of the economic empowerment part is normally ad hoc, no clear lifespan. It is just to throw some few things here and there to hoodwink the country that even economically we are doing something. But political is very continuous with the clear budgets. And it's until as a country we really genuinely look at some of those issues that we shall get out of the situation we are in.
Demian, if you
if really, for example,
can I interject a little, kindly? That is a direction and a tone we are going to set as a country and as a people. If our public administration expenditure is shooting through the roof, if we are paying more attention to creating political constituencies than delivering services to the people.
But Charles, I think you're mixing up things, my brother.
We've grown.
You're mixing up things. Because
if you look at
Charles,
government
if you may,
attention,
I've accepted the information. I'm holding the floor now.
What we are providing,
let him conclude. Then you get it clearly. Then you
what we
submit
have
to it.
done in expansion of parliament, for example, in expansion of districts, in expansion of counties, town councils, in expansion of elected leaders. I contested in an election. We have 2,178,000 elective positions in this country of 45 million people. We are telling people that the space to focus in, the young people we're talking about, is in the political line. So if even the remuneration, if we are paying members of parliament as much as we're paying them, if we are paying such a large, for example, cabinet, if we're paying so many different things,
now,
we are pointing a direction on where...
Change the entire topic now.
Not really, because the focus, yes.
Because when you talk about, when you go to our NDP3, which is our focus for the next 5 years as a country, the key drivers for development in this country are three: agriculture, tourism, and ICT. When you go to big partners of government of Uganda, and I will mention the European Union and the United States of America, 80% of their money goes into development, either direct funding to government or project funding, and the third biggest consumer of donor aid is health. So you have agriculture, tourism, health, and infrastructure. Heavily donor funded, direct to government of Uganda. So how can we sit here and say that the biggest recipient of donor funding is politics?
Anyway, you see, time may not allow us to delve into some issues, especially what Charles has alluded to and and I don't want to sound like I'm saying that the interest of some of these donors is in health sector because they have drugs that they've manufactured for which they are creating the market. I don't want to say that, but it's possible.
But they also give us cash.
Apart from Panadol and Coatam and a few other drugs that we manufacture as a country, which other serious health things do we manufacture as a country?
What are we doing about it?
Of course, that is a challenge of government. But we want the level of political activism in Uganda to be equivalent to economic empowerment.
So
But
the
if you are-
NGOs come
if-
through
yes,
to add
if-
in a voice
you
to that
see,
and say, please, you
we are
need to
talking
have this in
about
place.
a country that became a British protectorate in 1894 and has been to stretch from 1894 to 1996, 1962 when we got independence, has still been poor. You get it? And designed in such a manner, we don't want to go into the history of what kind of courses have our students been designed for. What kind of the education system that these powerful people in the world designed for the colonized. I don't want to go into that history. Because if you go into the details of why social studies and the history, etc., were really given a better place, was because of their interests. I don't want to go there. We are in a country where we have just stabilized in 1986. You are talking about a country that became independent in 62 and was supposed to hold elections in 1966 and it failed. And was supposed to have elections in 1971 and it didn't. We're talking about a country that has been in a state of anarchy for so many years. So the stabilization that we have somehow enjoyed, that level of security, is stretching from 1986 when this government took over. Now, the foundations of leadership, we are having so many local councils and so many constituencies, it is because of where we are coming from. So as we stabilize, you are helping us politically. And the level of political activism, it is way up there. Very good. Can we see the level of economic empowerment also raising? You as a donor, why is it that you're spending 2 million shillings on workshops, on democracy? And when we raise these issues, we're not saying that democracy is not important. Right now, even if I speak, I make good speeches, I don't think, as long as I don't have money, the issue is economic empowerment. How liberated am I economically? You are going to liberate Ugandans politically, but you're not contributing. So, but you have your target. And that's what we are saying. Okay, as you help these people to get what they want, because some of them, it is permanent interests throughout. Permanent interests. Can you help a Ugandan get out of poverty? How many programs? Yes, you have some, but they are ad hoc. Okay, is the budget the same? Can I write a concept? How come throughout, as a youth leader, I've tried to write concepts on economic empowerment, and I've not been given funding, but I've got funding on political mobilization. I've got funding on democracy.
Did you write to the
Why?
right people?
No.
Henry,
Maybe his passion.
Yes.
You are more passionate about political mobilization, and that's why you write very good ones and they get funded. But I think one thing has to be understood, that yes, there is poverty, but I get a feeling that you think we are going to solve poverty by throwing money at it.
No program.
Because you see, programs of civic empowerment are as good an intervention on economic empowerment, which you cannot touch. So if an organization is working on the mindsets, which you cannot touch, civic empowerment, I think that would also be a contribution towards the economic empowerment.
I think government needs to just
Then the government can add the rest.
take leadership on the direction you want the country to take. Because citizens on their own will not do that. Foreign actors on their own will not do that for government. Let government take the lead and show this is the direction we want to take and this is why we want to take this direction. Rally people around that.
Uganda's vision 2040.
I have. And who do you forget that we are a country?
The government plan is very clear.
Yes, we are a country.
How many of those programs government has designed have got funding?
We will be celebrating. We'll be celebrating.
I think what we have to do is to minimize the...
One rejoinder to Hudu. You know, currently I've been seeing the MPs, other than supervising in yoga, there are some are now supervising the recipients of Nabanja money. Very simple economic interventions by government. The districts where they've been, I saw one of Toro, Potpoto municipality. I saw 2 video clips, yes. And the recipients they called were ghosts. They were air.
Good as
and
well.
One recipient said they sent her a fake message that you have received money. These messages of conmen when they want to withdraw your money. Then, but there was no actual money on her mobile money account. I also happened to get information somewhere where I stay near Chira municipality. Somebody working in government came to a saloon and then he said, have you people received the money? Then the people said no. Said no, 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 no. Send me your numbers. And within 2 hours they had received Nabanja money.
Are you sure
Is
about
it? Is it? Who should
So even
investigate
as
that?
we talk about
that? I wish they
economic
could link up.
interventions,
Those are some of the people causing us problems.
as we talk
I
about,
wish you could reveal that one to us.
as we talk about economic interventions, what are we doing with the little money that we use ourselves for economic empowerment?
It's an interesting question that we would have to leave it. But now our time is fast spent, so we need to get towards the conclusion. Maybe I want to bring in Sarah. We've had people in the around saying that I think the next move for these NGOs that have been closed should be going to court. How do you think this is the best way forward, and do you think you'll get the right judgment out of this move?
Well, I have seen some statements of affected NGOs saying they are going to court. There is a vacuum in our appeal process as provided for in the Act. Article 52 of the Act provides that there shall be an adjudication committee where every person or organization who is aggrieved by the decisions of the Bureau appeals to. This committee has never existed for now 6 years. Government has never set it up. Last year we were in our last interministerial meeting between the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the sector NGO leadership. We did state that we need this adjudication committee. There were promises to set it up in 1 quarter. It is now coming 2 years. Last year we did a process internal and sent recommendations to the Bureau because there should be a representative of the NGOs on that committee. I think 3 names were forwarded. We also forwarded names, 5 names, for the ministry to pick 2 names that are supposed to represent NGOs on the NGO board before the expire of the NGO board. We did that in August last year, hoping that before 1st September, the ministry will have set up. And we sent in our representatives, 5 through which they should pick 2 of their choice. Up to now, we have no board, we have no adjudication committee. So an aggrieved party is only forced to seek redress under Article 50 of the Constitution in courts of law. But as a sector, we intend to dialogue with the Bureau. In the absence of the board, the actions of the Bureau are null and void. There is a precedent, Supreme Court precedent, in the case of Henry Chams versus Attorney General in this country, where the IGG office attempted to take action for non-compliance, and the leadership tribunal was not constituted. Supreme Court ruled that where administrative organs are not fully constituted, their actions are null and void. So there is no exception with the NGO Bureau. And if anybody goes to court, they will nullify the actions they have issued. But we are giving dialogue a chance. We shall have dialogue with the Bureau, make sure they retract on their decisions, as we also, because it should be on record that the civil society leaders do not condone non-compliance with the laws. As affected NGOs comply, that the Bureau also makes sure that they are functioning in accordance with the law that establishes them.
Okay. Now to Charles, just to possibly, if there are Bureau people who are listening in and who are watching in, what would have been the best advice you can give them on the way they would have approached this whole issue?
Well, it's hard to tell why they chose the approach they chose. Maybe there was another intended outcome they expected, and maybe they have achieved that. But to say that as we seek compliance, it's important that compliance is genuine. And people shouldn't read, the Bureau shouldn't allow itself to be read, its intentions to be read by people interpreting its actions, but it should be seen to be acting to facilitate the growth of civil space, not its contraction. And I think if the executive director can speak to his line minister and say, we have a lacuna here, please address these other issues so that we can comply well. But I also have a message for civil society actors in the NGO and CDO sector, that the environment in which you're operating requires that you play carefully, that you, yes, Hudu would love to use the word patriotism, though I don't think he should have the right to define who a patriot is.
Why not? Why should I not have
No,
the
we should define it as it is. It is in the interest of everybody that we have a country that is moving in a direction that uplifts everybody in a positive way across the entire political, I mean across the entire spectrum of economic, social, political, and other rights. It needs to be wholesome, and I think that's lacking at the moment. So if there are compliance issues, those leaders of those affected organizations need to address those squarely and not give excuses. If there are issues with application of the law, the government on its part also needs to apply the law. And if the law itself is problematic, we may need to look back into it and say, this is a problem, this is an inhibitor, this is a facilitator. We need this fine.
Interesting. Then Henry, what's your way forward on both ends?
I think for the people in power to understand that civil society, by its nature, is not supposed to be a spokesperson of government, and therefore, when they come out to criticize the things that are not going well, they don't do that to fail a government. They do that because they want to make sure that government points in the direction that they have promised to serve Ugandans. So I think that would be very important. And also I think there are issues about the status of the Bureau, because as I understand now, as we speak, it's a semi-autonomous organization. So as a semi-autonomous organization, it remains in the trappings of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Perhaps, I don't know what would happen if it became autonomous, that it's able to delink itself entirely from the ISO, the police, and other security institutions that that fall under the ambit of the Ministry of Internal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Henry. And to Hood, have you already assigned some of your men to go and check out with these NGOs that are already violated?
Yes, really. I don't think that requires. We have already started, and my team, I have 5 deputy RCCs, and every division has DSOs, and the entire security system has already started to do its work. We are not going to, as a government, to condone this level of responsibility. And I've said it, and I continue saying it, that if you don't walk the walk, then you should not talk the talk. The NGOs have been preaching good governance, democracy, rule of law, but they are doing something totally different. And I want to agree with Sarah that I think this is an issue that requires dialoguing. Otherwise, going to courts of law, they have a right, but they will be fighting a losing battle. You are talking about the National Bureau of NGOs that has been issuing certificates, permits. You go tomorrow, you get a permit from the NGO board. Then when the NGO board says you have not complied here, you say, hey, you are not well constituted. But who issued you with the permit? I thought you are the one who went there. You get what I mean? So there is no, I think that is excuse and it's escapism. The issue is that the law is the law. If we have agreed as a country that there are regulations and we have a regulator, then you must comply. Otherwise, hiding behind they are witch hunting us will not help. Do what you're supposed to do. And we want to appeal to the NGOs and generally the civil society. This is your country. This is your country. Even if a neighbor gives you money, it does not mean that you should go and fight your mother.
But I'm worried. There are organizations that like GLEAS, IDEA, that are think tanks that are also registered the other side of the company limited by guarantee. How are you also going to close these ones? Because of course there was that whole.
As long as they don't comply, they are also going to be. It's not closing; it's suspending. They will be suspended. But as of today, due diligence was done on a few of them, and this is the outcome. They have not complied. And we are talking about the issue of morality. We know there is a serious contradiction and a whole debate in jurisprudence on morality versus the law. What is right is right. Do you have a valid permit? Yes. Operate. Do you have annual returns submitted? Yes. Operate. How come all NGOs are not closed? How come? You get what? So therefore, we should stop really appearing to be agents of some forces. The primary objective of every NGO should be to develop the country. I don't think the objective should be to develop another country, because you may hide behind certain objectives when actually your interest is to push for the interests of your funders. And that's why we are saying we have to know who are these funders. We have terrorists. We have terrorists. And America knows it, UK knows it. We have lost Ugandans here. We have lost Ugandans to terrorists. Kenyans have lost people. Tanzanians have lost people. A terrorist will use anybody who is desperate to money to achieve his objective. And the government cannot therefore allow such important partners to operate when they are not regulated. So in summary, the right thing must be done. We are not going to allow, as a government, if it means falling, we shall fall. But whether by the Gandhi principles or the Machiavellian principles, we are in charge and we shall rule, and we shall not allow any outsiders to come and hoodwink our people because they are giving them a few salaries here and there to disorganize the country. We know what is happening in Libya. We have seen what is happening in Afghanistan. We have seen, in the name of democracy and good governance, programs that have been sent to certain countries that have oil, that have some minerals. But the target is really those minerals. We have presidents who are in the pockets of some economic hitmen. And we are not ready. That will happen under a different regime. But under the NRM regime, I highly doubt if that will happen. I beg to submit. Apologies, I hope I have not
Thank you very much,
pulled Charles's leg or my good friend, Sarah's friend.
Thank you very much, Hudu. Thank you very much, Henry, Sarah, and of course, Charles for joining us today. This conversation that is happening today on Friday. Thank you very much, our dear viewers out there, for always following this conversation. Yes, it's up to you to now know whether the civic space is really shrinking or not, according to what our RSS has said. So it's a conversation that is still ongoing on our hashtag ChatShowUG on Twitter and all our social media spaces, Facebook, of course, and YouTube. We are on there live. Just click there, subscribe to the channel, and be part of the conversation. My name has been Masesa Demiano, and your host today, and we'll continue this debate next week. Thank you.